Welcome back to the Bush League this week, also known as the SGFFL. I'm the host, Scott Gross, also the league commissioner. Joined this week by another commissioner, Scott Specker. And Scott, quite an interesting week we had, round one of the playoffs. Yep. First of all, let's take a look at the Toilet Bowl series. We have 4 teams left. Now, taking a look at this, it wasn't too bad of a lottery. You still have the number 2 overall seed, you have the number 4 overall seed, and the number 1 overall seed, J-City. They had a chance to go on to the next round. It was there for the taking, and they just didn't want it.
Yeah, you know, it's tough to win in fantasy football when you only score 16 points. And, you know, East-West only scored 23, so it was a very, very winnable game.
So looking at everything, you got 2 of the top 4 seeds going on, and that's pretty much what we're looking for in something like this.
Very much so. Your higher seeds should win. That's why they're the higher seeds. And your lower seeds, well, there's a reason they're the lower seeds. I mean,
number 8 seed, no, he goes down along with number 7 seed, the Bad Boys. So they're going to be drafting right where they should be, 8 and 7 overall. You've got good news now for the TBG's BVDs being the number 2 overall seed. They had to knock off the number 3 overall seed in Boston, but they're going to be picking no worse than number 3 overall.
Yeah, and as we've done the Fantasy Football League for years, a lot of times it's not the number 1 pick, it's the number 3, 4, 5 that you really build your teams around. So not picking number 3 at worst gives you a really good player and can really build on that.
Let's take a look at our matchups here in the semifinals of the Toilet Bowl, and here we have, it's going to be, right off the bat, you're going to have the East-West connection going off against the number 4 seed, the Lastrop Swamp Dogs. So East-West, now they're really hurt. They lost Gronkowski, now they've lost Jordy Nelson, and the Lastrop Swamp Dogs, they look like they're going to be all guns a-blazing here. They got Bryce Brown in their team, so it looks like, on paper right now, Lastrop should get to the Toilet Bowl championship.
Yeah, you know, I was looking at the rosters today before we came on the air, and Lastrop, I think, really has an edge top to bottom over East-West, especially without Jordy Nelson. And the way Bryce Brown's been playing, yeah, it's, unless something drastic happens, I got to say Lastrop is probably a clear-cut favorite in that game.
We take a look at our second matchup. It's going to be Trevor Gross and the BVDs versus last year's defending league champion, K&F Friends, and Kyle the Hoff Stump, along with Nathan Stump. So they have a chance to win it all on one facet and then win it all on the other. They're loaded for bear as well, looking at Andrew Luck and Stephen Ridley down there in K&N.
Yeah, I like them, and then I thought with the injury to Nelson, James Jones could be a huge factor too. I mean, they're pretty even, not a lot of star power on either side, but I think Luck is a big edge over Chad Henne, and I just think Ridley, and with the injury to Nelson, James Jones gives K&N a win this week.
And that's what we're looking for. We're looking at Lastrop versus K&N. It'll be the 4 versus number 6 in our league championship for the Toilet Bowl. We'll see if that's going to round things out after this weekend. What we're going to do right now, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll go around the league. We've had special phone interviews with members in the league, especially we hope to get a couple of the ladies, the league champions in their own divisions, on our show. So we'll have them. We'll have a few more people analyzing the quarterfinals in the SGFFL, also known as the Bush League. Stay tuned.
With a few safety tips for all you Chief fans. First, if you snack during the game, wait at least a half hour before you resume cheering. If you don't, I'm telling you, you could cramp up. Second, if you see a Chiefs player in danger, do not attempt to help him. The other players are professionals, and they are trained to deal with any kind of attack situation. Please let them do their job. Finally, remember to use the buddy system. I know I feel better when I'm surrounded by my buddies. And go Chiefs!
Welcome back to the Bush League Playoff Show, also known as the SGFFL. Scott Gross along with Scott Specker. Now we're going to get to the big dogs here, the main playoffs here. We're now into the quarterfinals here. We're 2 wins away from crowning a league champion here. No real surprises when you look at the bottom 2 seeds anyway. We take a look at the number 12 seed, Thumpers Bumpers. They got off on the wrong foot with Drew Brees having a down game.
Oh.
He needed him to have a big game. He didn't come up for him.
No, and I believe that was the first time in like 54 games that Brees did not throw a touchdown, and he ended up throwing 5 interceptions. And it's tough to win in any sports when you have more turnovers than scores. I mean, that's just facts.
Brian Stump needed Brees to have maybe about 20 in that game. He came up with a -1, so how often are you going to see that? So Boston make that Hillman goes on, and they kind of cruise after round 1, and they're going to be matched up against the Milfs, and we'll get to that a little bit later. The number 11 seed, the Red Devils, came out of the gates very fast against Bert's Badasses, but they ran out of gas in the end, and the Badasses come through, and they played like badasses, and they're advancing to round number 2 for the first time in quite some time as well.
Yeah, they both have, they have good teams. Bert came on strong at the end. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, and Bert finished strong enough to win that game.
It's really nice to see 2 of the 4 remaining founding fathers advance, and you're going to be taking on Bert's Badasses. Well, your thoughts on your season this year?
It's after the last year, it's really nice to be where I'm at. I feel like we're a player or 2 away, which, I didn't really know who to shop at the deadline, so I kind of rolled the dice with what I have. Now I've got Percy Harvin, who's been out for a while, which makes it tough. But, Rogers has had a couple of subpar weeks. If he tears one off and has a huge week, and Ray Rice has one of the 120-yard, 2-touchdown games, I could be sitting, in the conference championship. But you never know. I mean, Rogers, I thought, would have really did a lot more against the Vikings this last weekend. He really didn't impress me. So that's kind of scary because that was a home game, and after the week before against the Giants, you think he would have been a little bit more fired up.
Kind of lucky you had that bye in round 1.
Yeah, my team had like one of the lowest point totals, and I put a lineup in just, out of instinct. I always put lineups in to see how I do, and 34, 35 points, I think. I mean, it's a lot of teams, losing teams, were in the 40s, and some were even in the 50s, so it wouldn't have been a good week for me had I had to play a game.
Let's now go down to Arizona. Gabe Stott, your thoughts on the opening round of the playoffs. Any surprises to you, Gabe?
Nice throw, Sanchez. Thanks, Scott. A lot of things happened this last weekend. We had a lot of comebacks in these playoffs. It was a really exciting weekend. The biggest ones that were to really take note of was D40, Burt, Lastrup, St. Paul, all of them coming from behind. It was really exciting stuff to watch. I know a lot of people are disappointed, myself included. You're disappointed. But it was really a fun weekend to watch. A lot of drama. I hope to see more of that this weekend also. There's a lot of talk about the weak division winners or the perceived weak division winners that got byes. No big secret, I guess. A lot of weak lineups that had weak schedules and had some luck along the way, and that I guess that's what it takes a lot of times. Some good teams didn't do so well, so that's just kind of the way it goes from year to year. Speaking of kind of weak, perceived weak division winners, you got one of our matchups this week is St. Paul versus Sugarville. SGFL headquarters are not getting a whole lot of contact with Sugarville these days. She's pretty much locked down, and we're not getting any contact with her. She doesn't want really gone Belichick on us, and it's really been difficult to get any sort of comment from her. She's just kind of keeping to herself, and maybe that's her strategy. It might work. The thing about that matchup for me is that St. Paul got by without Martin and Julio Jones, and still got by Scott City, and that was pretty huge for him. I think if those guys show up again, Sugarville is going to have a tough time this week getting by them. The Patriots have a bad matchup with the Texans on Monday night, so that's going to be difficult for Marianne. And she had a big week that last week of the season with her wide receivers that she picked up, but they all struggled last week. And if they continue to struggle, she might be in some trouble. And she does have Michael Turner, who had a big game against Atlanta, or I believe it was Carolina last time that he plays. But she needs some help from Michael Turner. He needs him to show up. If he doesn't show up, and no Tom Brady, she's in trouble. So my pick on that game is going to be St. Paul.
Let's now take a look at our playoff matches here as we have, the Milfs going against Hillman. Scott, your thoughts on this matchup?
I looked at Hillman's roster, and that team is just stacked. Adrian Peterson, Arian Foster, Cam Newton, Andre Johnson, Des Bryant. I think talent-wise, they're going to be the toughest team to beat in the playoffs. I include myself in that I'd have a really tough time against them. So if I was to have to say who do I want to see win, I'd like to see the Milfs win.
We'll take now a look around the league here. We'll take a look at these matchups.
Yeah, been a great season for the Chiefs. One of our best, if not the best, so far. When I look at out past the next couple games, you don't want to do that, but it's now or never, I think, for the Chiefs. This is our year. This year, I really tried to focus on just having a great draft. Really set it up last year, got a couple good draft picks, and took a chance on Adrian Peterson, and it turned out Des Bryant. I was ready to trade him. Really disappointed in him. So first, 2, 3, even 4 weeks, I shopped him around a little bit. But then that's been the difference. I've got guys that can produce, but then he's just been that almost like a steroid shot for us, just really producing and putting us over the top. On paper, it looks like, we should have an easy week, but we don't play on paper. Anybody can go off on any given week, and, Bears defense, they can put up some points. That's really going to be a factor for us. And, Megatron, obviously, going against the Packers defense this weekend, he can put up 20 very easily. Everybody's excited. I haven't seen this really since 2002 when we had our last playoff win. It's really fun to see. You walk down the street, everybody's saying hi and patting you on the back, wondering, kind of wanting to talk strategy. Everybody's excited, that's for sure. We even had a guest appearance from Kyle the Hoff recently, where he's promoting the Chiefs to go all the way. We're newbies here, so I don't know. I don't think St. Paul's got what it takes. I think it's going to be one of the newbies, and I just hope that it's Hillman.
We go to another phone interview. We're now joined by Jody Stott, the owner of the number 4 seed, the Milfs. And Jody, you're going to be paired up against the Hillman Chiefs in round number 2. You're coming out of your bye. What are your thoughts on your season, and what are your thoughts on taking on the high-flying Hillman Chiefs?
I think I'm pretty impatient and give up pretty easily on things, so I made some trades early, and obviously Vic being out didn't help things, and trying to get some running backs. I was pretty impressed that I ended up being division champion, but other than that, I was surprised with how things turned out. Rivers has to have a game, and hopefully the Bears defense can step in there a little bit and make some points for me. They've been the top scorers for me throughout the season, keeping me consistent that way. So that's my hope heading into the playoffs here. Changes needed to be made. So Calvin Johnson has been, obviously the last couple of weeks, been big for me. So hopefully that will continue here the next couple of weeks and keep me going further. It's certainly fun to beat the boys, especially when there's a lot of smack talking, and we're not necessarily as good as the girls, being not necessarily as good as the boys, or making the best trades or whatever the case may be. But it's fun to see some people get all up in arms about it and then go out in the first round of the playoffs, or stuff like that. It's good. It's been fun.
As we go around the league, we're now joined on the phone by Donovan Diker, the owner of Big D's Dynasty. Donovan, your thoughts on the 2012 season?
Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the season. Once again, in my normal tradition of running my team, I stuck with pretty much what I drafted. Didn't do a whole lot of trading. Had to upgrade at the quarterback position. Kind of got stuck with a stinker in Sanchez at the beginning there, so made a move there to upgrade the quarterback position. Didn't use any draft picks to do it, which is the way I like to roll. Made one pick at the end there with last trip to pick up T.Y. Hilton. Gave up a 9th round pick, which I thought was very fair, but overall, I had a solid year. It was one of those weird years where nothing went the way I thought it was going to be. Played that first playoff game, lose by, I think it was 3 points. Represented myself pretty well, scoring 53 in that game. So I can't say I'm happy because I'm done already, but overall, I'm happy with the season. Still over 500. I would be absolutely amazed if Hillman Lonnie doesn't win it this year. I mean, he's got the stacked backfield. His team's looking pretty much unstoppable right now. Besides him, the only other team that, when you really look at their roster, that just jumps out at you and gives you that wow is unbelievably Skippyville. He's got the horses. It just depends if they decide to run for him or not. When I look at this game, like I had said before, I see Skippyville and I see lots of horses for him. And Harvin, don't ask me what's going on with him. I've never seen an ankle injury make someone be out for maybe it looks like 4 weeks now. I think he might be kind of being a little bit of a Sally for the Vikings. But besides that, I mean, he's got Rogers. Rogers at any time can blow up and give you a huge game. Playing at Green Bay, it seems like even though when the weather gets cold, Rogers still can blow up for you. On the other side, you got Burt coming in with Stafford, he's that indoor quarterback. He loves playing in the domes. He loves the nice warm weather, and he's got a ton of injuries right now. He's basically going to be riding Kelvin Johnson, and if Green Bay can shut him down, that would be huge. On the running back side of things, you got Skippy sitting there with Ray Rice, who has been putting up solid game after solid game. Now he's going to come up against a good challenge in the Washington defense, who they don't give up a lot of rushing yards. They're a little weak on the passing end of things, but they're tough against the rush. Whereas Burt's got Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis against Dallas. They haven't been the greatest against the run either. So to look at that thing right there, I got to give the edge to Burt a little bit. Going down to the wide receivers, far and away, Skippy has the blowout at wide receiver and tight end. He's got 4 really good options to go with there. And if he wants to, tag in Pettigrew off the bench if Harvin's out, that's a pretty solid lineup with him. As is Burt, looking at Burt's thing now with Sidney Rice with his concussion, you don't know if he's going to play next week. So you got to take a look at Burt, and he's got some options on the bench of some guys that can put up some numbers. But for Burt, it's going to be more of hitting the right numbers. He needs to pick the right guy next week, and if he does that, he could come out on top on that end. But right now, I'm going to give that edge to Skippy. When you look at the defenses and the kickers, I think you pretty much got a toss-up on this one. I mean, I don't see either guy having just a blowout advantage on that. New Orleans is going to score a ton against the Giants next week, and Cincinnati's not going to sit back and let Dallas destroy them. So that's a pretty much even matchup there also, in my opinion. So, I mean, overall, I'm going to give the advantage to Skippy. I think you're looking at a pretty high-scoring game. If you had to pick a number, I'd say you're looking at about 55 to 47. Skippy's going to pull it out over Burt. In my opinion, this is one of the most even years we've ever had in this league. I mean, you look at the top teams and you look at the bottom teams. We had no absolute just stinkers this year, and we had no one run away with, one of those 2-loss seasons that we've seen in the past. You had division winners winning 12, 13, 14 games, and you had every division, you had down to the last week people with opportunities to upset people, and it wasn't, there's no powerhouses this year. I mean, Lonnie, like I said, has the one team that you really look at and say, man, this guy should be winning every darn game. But we know how that all works in this league. It just doesn't happen that way. So, in my opinion, this is probably the weakest set of number 1 seeds I've ever seen. Lonnie should have been a number 1 seed, but he wasn't. And even Burt. I mean, Burt, you look at his team, he really could have been a number 1 seed, but, the 2 ladies jumped up, won when they needed to win, and, even Skippy, which surprises all of us, actually finally had a good season. So, I mean, overall, I'd say we're looking at our weakest crop of number 1 seeds, and I wouldn't pick any of the number 1 seeds to be the one that pulls us out and wins it this year. I think we've had guys in this league long enough, and the ladies are pretty knowledgeable, and people are learning how to work the draft, work certain things. There's things that we may change in this league to try to make things even out even a little bit more, but I think as everybody's been in the league longer, they're realizing certain things, and they're maybe getting a little bit smarter working their teams, and that's why I don't think we're seeing these teams that you just look at and you go, oh my goodness, that there's no way that team isn't going to win every week. It's a lot more evened out, a lot more of a level playing field.
Can D40 beat Cammie? Simply put, my pick for this game is that Cammie is going to come away with this one. I do believe it's a toss-up, but my pick is Cammie. I think Breeze is going to bounce back, and that's going to help out Marquez Colston for for Jake, and Jake's got better running backs. They both have strengths and weaknesses. D40, he needs to get more from RG3 than he did last week against Donovan, but RG3 did enough for him last week, so that was good. But D40 has better wide receivers. You got better running backs on Cam. You got better wide receivers on D40. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. I think it's going to be a close one, but I'm going to go with Cammy Killers on that game. All right, my favorite to win it all. I think it's a pretty obvious pick. Hillman is got to be the favorite to win it all. He's been putting up points week after week, over 100 points, over 80 points, over 70 points. He is kind of the juggernaut that everybody's going to have to deal with, and if he goes down, that's going to be a big deal. I would say that this is the week for Lonnie to be nervous. This is the week that the big stack teams a lot of times fall. I fell last year with the same kind of team as did Trevor. We put our eggs in one basket and came up one round short. It's just an unfortunate thing, and it just might happen to Lonnie again. But that being said, he is my favorite to win. Dark horse for me would be D40. I think that he's got the tools to make a run. He's got that big weapon in RG3. So if not Hillman, I might be looking at D40 on that. So back to you.
Thanks, Gabe. Let's now take a look at our playoff matches here. Any surprises, Scott, from you looking at the toilet bowl or the first round of the playoffs?
I would say the biggest surprise to me would be the last group, just because all year they had people on the trade block. It was like they're really just shuffling for picks. Not really. They were looking ahead to next year before the toilet bowl, before really the halfway point of the year. And to sit here and look at their team now, it's like, they got some players in there that they might end up with that number one pick. And if they got all these extra picks, they could be a really, really tough team looking ahead to next year.
Let's go back down to Arizona. Gabe Stott, your thoughts?
Playoff surprises. I think all games are going to be tough calls this week. They're all going to be pretty close matchups. If there's going to be a surprise, I'd be looking at the Milfs over Hillman. The other games are going to be really close, but I think everybody's kind of got to figure that Hillman is the heavy favorite over the Milfs, and can she pull it off? I think she can. On paper, it tells me Hillman. I mean, I have to pick Hillman to win. He's just that much of a heavy favorite, but she's got some tools that if she can get a little bit of luck on her side, she can definitely pull it off. She's got some interesting matchups here. She's got Chicago defense, and Lonnie's got Peterson. Those two go against each other, so it's kind of the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. So it'll be interesting to see if she can keep Peterson in check with her defense, and that'd be huge for her. She needs Rivers to show up. He's been disappointing for a lot of people all year long. San Diego's a mess, but if she can get it one game out of him here to get her to the next round, now's the time. Gore versus Miami is a good matchup, and on the Hillman side, some question marks for him a little bit. He's got Foster also along with Peterson, but Foster, they're talking about he might be sitting a little bit. Texas might be resting him some, being that they've clinched the playoffs, and so he might not be getting as much action as Lonnie would like. So that'll be interesting to see. And Cam Newton goes up against Atlanta. He had a big game against him last time. We'll see if he can do it again. If he doesn't, Lonnie could be in trouble. And Lonnie's just so stacked top to bottom. He's got the heavy wide receivers, and if Jody has Calvin Johnson, her big acquisition in the trade deadline, we'll see if he can come through for her in a big way. Along with her tight ends, can match up with Lonnie's heavy hitters. Lonnie's also going to need, if he starts Greg Jennings again, he's going to need him to do something as well. So, back to you.
All right, welcome back. Well, Scott, we got to let you go and get off to your team and get ready for your round 2 opponent, which will be the Bert's Badasses. You went to high school with them. You've known them most of your life, or been around in most of your life. So, your thoughts on the 2012 season overall before we let you go?
It's been a lot of fun this year. It's always more fun when you win. Last year was no fun really from 5 minutes 5 minutes into the year through well until this year's draft. So it's been a lot of fun. I wish Bert the best of luck against me. Hopefully his best week is behind him or happens after I beat him. But best of luck any way you look at it. Best team win.
Any favorites you have in the playoffs? Other than you can't pick yourself.
No,
so anybody else out there?
I just think right now Hillman's team is just, they're loaded. They would have to have a majorly bad week, I think, for somebody to beat them.
Your impressions on the top 4 seeds? Do you think they're credible? Do you think they're weak? Do you think they deserve to be where they are?
I think they deserve to be where they are because it's not like you won just one game. You did it through the course of the season. But some teams made more moves at the deadline to better their team, and those teams are the teams that are really, that may be making the big push for the big run here.
Any one of those 4 you think's better than the other ones? You're looking at Sugarvale, who's playing their games up in the Sugar Dome. You got the Cami Killers. He was #1 team through most of the year. He kind of had a downward spiral, came back to take the division away from Bert's Badasses. You've got yourself as a 3 seed, Milts as a 4 seed. Any one of those 4 a force to be reckoned with, or do you think that the wild card teams are much stronger?
I would say of the 4, Cami Killers probably the toughest. I mean, they were high points a couple times. They have a lot of talent, but like I say, a lot of times you get so caught up with winning with what you got, other teams will go out and get better than you because you don't know who to move. And I kind of caught myself in that spot. Who do I trade to get better? And by not making a move, I've got an injured Percy Harvin. I got a Wes Welker, who's a great in the PPR league and yards, but isn't a guy who catches 12, 13 touchdowns a year. So, there's still those little glitches on my team that you say, great on paper, but on Sunday, you just don't know.
Well, there you have it. Other than himself, he likes the Hillman Chiefs. They're the force to be reckoned with, and I want to thank Hillman for putting together that commercial we had before the break, before we went to the break. We saw that after the break. So the Hillman Chiefs very excited. They've got the Hillman TV network going on there, and they've got a big message to all the Chief fans out there. So looks like their matchup is in their favor this week, but that's why you play the games.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us, Scott. We'll take now a look around the league here. We'll take a look at these matchups.